My garden sings for me. Hi everyone, I am so happy that you're here sitting down with me watching while I paint this new artwork of mine. I hope you're feeling cozy. I hope you've also got something nice to work on. Maybe you're also drawing alongside me. Maybe you're doing the dishes. Maybe you're doing your washing. Whatever it is, welcome to this soft and cozy place on the internet. My name is Sophie and I'm an artist. I'm based in Victoria, Australia, and I love painting, I love illustrating, and I love telling little stories in my illustration. Whether they're big feelings, deep feelings kind of storytelling, or just simple, sweet, quaint little stories that also have a soft place to be in the world. So this is a little artwork that I've titled My Garden Sings for Me, and it's inspired by the little bugs and birds and twitters that you hear in the garden while you're sitting outside, while you're just being a human in the world. The garden is always singing, the bugs are always doing something, and also mixed with my love for music and connection with music, connection in music. And this is inspired by that. I've also been writing a little story with these characters over the last couple of years, just in my head, in the back of my mind, in funny little notebooks that I have here and there in the studio. It's a little ladybug character with a little banjo who makes friends with all sorts of other little bugs in their garden, and they make music together. My cousin just had her first ever baby, and I thought it was the perfect opportunity to create a brand new illustration using some sweet little storytelling techniques to create a sweet narrative for this new baby in the world. I wanted to make an illustration that was soft and gentle but playful, with big pops of color and interesting shapes and interesting flow to it. So maybe today, in today's video, we can just have a nice little chat about visual storytelling in illustration and how I approach it, what thoughts go through my head as I'm creating an illustration with the visual storytelling elements. So this video, I jumped straight into the final illustration. But I did spend a bit of time, as I mentioned before, thinking about these characters. These are the characters that I've had in my head for quite a while, and I've got a little book about them. So they are a familiar pair for me, and I was feeling like doing an illustration that was kind of cozy and nice. I didn't want to necessarily strain my brain too much to create this illustration, so I reached into my little library of characters and things that I was comfy with, and I pulled these little guys out. I had done a little drawing in my sketchbook. You can sort of peek in and out of some of the shots here, but I just did a quick drawing in my head, from my head out onto the page, just to get it out, just to see what would happen. And this doesn't always happen, but for some reason the first drawing that I did I was happy with, and I was ready to go. Also, I was on a bit of a time strain because my cousin lives in Perth on the other side of Australia to me, and my mum was going to visit the next day, so I had to kind of get something out quite quickly for my cousin's baby. But I wanted it to be special, of course. I didn't want it to be too rushed, so I sort of did this over most of the day, in between other work that I was doing, sort of letting little chunks of it dry as I went. The materials I used was an A4 piece of watercolor paper, and I used some Gansai Tambi by Kuretake watercolors. I do tend to be pretty heavy-handed with these watercolor paints. I don't know if that's the correct technique or whatever, but I don't really mind. I kind of like how it has a shiny effect to it. Anyway, Let's get into talking about some storytelling stuff. So my process is, some sketches, thinking back in my head, what do I already know? I have a good think about what kind of story I want to tell and who this story is for. I like to have a bit of a goal or an intent behind the story. So for this one, this is a story, this is an illustration, this is a story for a baby, for a brand new baby, which may hopefully be hung in their room for them to look at. And so it needed to be something cute and happy. I wanted it to have something that felt really good, and I wanted the story to not be complex. I wanted the story to be nice and simple, a very simple narrative that a toddler, a young child can look at and be like, that's what they're doing. I also wanted this story, the narrative, to be open enough that the child, when they get a little bit older, when they're playing with their imagination, could perhaps put their own narrative into this illustration. I wanted the characters to be simple enough that perhaps my cousin's baby might want to draw or copy the illustrations when they get a bit older. I don't know. But yeah, something like that. I also really enjoy visually portraying something in my illustrations that can't necessarily be seen, or they're not necessarily visual things. So for instance, in this illustration, that was music. These little bugs are playing music. They have musical instruments. I just wanted some cute little rainbow dots, like Smarties or M&Ms, just dotted all around the illustration, filled with little musical notes in it. And they might be fun ones to count or to look at later when the kid's a little bit bigger. You know, how many pink ones are there? How many yellow ones are there, for instance? And I love to portray something that is not usually visually seen, because it adds a really sweet bit of whimsical, magical sweetness to the illustrations. Sometimes this invisible thing is a difficult thing, or, you know, whatever. But for this illustration, I wanted to portray something like music. Now, I usually work fairly intuitively. So color palette, so going into this, I knew I wanted something orange, sunshiny yellow as a big color, because, I mean, yellow is a very happy, lovely color. So I wanted my flowers to be bright yellow, and then I kind of intuitively worked around that. The stems of the flowers and the leaves, I wanted to be really green and appley. I wanted to make sure that I chose colors with some high contrast, because I know that little kids, little babies like to look at things that are high contrast. So I made sure to think about interesting shadows that I could put into this illustration that might be visually interesting for a little baby as well. So yeah, I did start with the big yellow flowers, and I just kind of like rolled around, figured out what colors I needed to add as I went along. There were a few moments where I would choose a color and I didn't end up liking it. I'd have to paint over it, which was on the little ladybug character. And even on the butterfly character, I changed its color a couple of times as well as I went through the illustration. And that's just how I work. I'm really just not someone who plans. I do like to just go with the flow of it and see what happens. As Bob Ross says, make happy little accidents. I feel like they make me a stronger artist and they keep me on my toes, and I really like to keep my busy brain kind of activated and engaged in things. Another thing to think about when creating an interesting narrative in an illustration is to play with scale. I love playing with scale. A lot of my characters are either as tiny as a small pebble or they are the mountain. I really love playing with scale and seeing how that makes your character feel. How does your character react to being the size that they are? So bugs and insects are small in our garden, so I wanted to do a fairly close-up piece of the bugs, but I didn't want the bugs to necessarily be right in the middle as well. This is where composition comes in. I really think composition is a really interesting way to also play with story. I really like rhythm and flow. I like a good movement. I like it when the viewer's eyes kind of bounce and dance around the illustration. So I made my bugs small. They're still quite small on the overall illustration. They're the main characters, but they're like equally main characters with the flowers, I think. So they kind of sit up in the top half of the illustration, and I like that because it's sort of different at the top and our eye travels down, follows the flowers, follows the stems of the flowers down, and then it can flow right back up again. And I made sure to have quite a lot of space around the flowers, around the edges, on the inside, between the flowers, so that your eye can see which way the flowers are flowing. A good silhouette is really important in storytelling so that your audience can see what's happening very clearly. I studied animation, and this was sort of hammered into our head how important a good silhouette is, a good clear silhouette. When you think of all the most famous characters out there, Mickey Mouse, for instance, he has an incredibly clear silhouette and it's unmistakable. So I think, having clear silhouettes, having clear poses of your characters, clear layout of your backgrounds, very, very clear to anyone watching what is going on, what to look at, etc. I also like to think of the titles of my artworks and how they add to the storytelling. So this title is My Garden Sings for Me, and I feel like it's pretty obvious. The bugs are playing, there's music dancing all around, but it just sort of cements the idea that this is a story about bugs in the garden creating music. I want it to feel like you've been gardening, or all your efforts in gardening and creating this flower garden in your backyard, and you're being rewarded by being sung to by all the bugs and the creatures that may live in your garden. Let me just quickly put this on pause because I want to show you this month's Patreon rewards and tell you some real nice news I am very excited to share. In the Orange Bird tier over on my Patreon, usually my patrons will receive a single double-sided mini print and a vinyl sticker, but this month I am doing 3 mini prints per person. They're double-sided. On one side is an artwork, and on the back sort of like a collage of sketchbook drawings and stuff that I did to get to this illustration. A couple of weeks ago I had a really lovely time doing an art prompt day with my patrons, and the theme for the art prompt day was 3 panels and 3 colors, and I created 3 little artworks for this prompt, and I was so proud of them. So I created a little narrative in these 3 illustrations, and originally I was like, I'm gonna give people maybe 1 random print for being an Orange Bird tier, but then I created this story and I was like, no, they need all 3 of them. So the story I made is basically like a connection to land and body and mind. The first piece is called A Place to Plant My Feet. The second piece is A Place to Lay My Body. And the third piece is A Place to Rest My Mind. So I have a full video of the process of me creating these artworks over on my Patreon, along with the art prompt day. And you can jump over there if you want to have a look. You'll also have access to nearly 100 videos that I have over on my Patreon. Patreon's a real cute place. I really like it. Also, there's a sticker involved in the Orange Bird tier, and it's an amalgamation of all three of the artworks in one artwork. Also, the exciting thing I want to tell you about is that I have just opened a brand new tier, and it is a sticker only tier, and that's the Green Bird sticker tier, and I'm very excited, and it is open now. So if you want a vinyl sticker, or if you want the 3 prints and the vinyl sticker, sign up to either the Green Bird tier or the Orange Bird tier anytime within this month, within the month of July 2025. And I will package them up nicely in a little envelope and send them off to you with a great big kiss and a cuddle. Thank you so much to my patrons. I adore you. I adore you. Now, sometimes it's difficult to come up with stories, isn't it? It's difficult to sit down and really use your brain and think about a story. But again, practice and also just doing the thing. Just grab out a notebook and just start writing some stuff. I love doing automatic writing. I find that I come up with a lot of really weird and interesting ideas when I do automatic writing. Very David Bowie, Mark Bolan-esque kind of stuff. Just let my brain wander and all sorts of strange, interesting imagery comes out of my head. I really love automatic writing. That's basically where you put your pen down and you just start writing. Whatever flow comes out of your head. I try to ease away from things that are on my mind, like personal matters, and try to let my brain kind of get a bit abstract. I think very visually, so I get a lot of images come into my head and I will start describing them, and then as I'm describing them, just words come out. That's a really fun way to do some visual storytelling. Yeah, that's sort of my little kickoff point when I'm coming up with some stories. Also, looking at life experiences, picking a certain emotion or a feeling or two, and combining them, and then using my sketchbook to try and exhaust all ideas when pairing those two ideas together. So for this illustration, it could have potentially been music and insects. So what I could have done was then grab my sketchbook and seen what kind of really simple drawings I could come up with combining those two things. And then thought, once I think that I've exhausted all my ideas, I just keep going and I try and do more ideas and more and more. And it's really interesting because it's not always your first idea that's your best idea. It's not always your third idea that's your best idea. Sometimes it's your 30th idea that's the best idea. It's good to just get all the kind of obvious ideas out of your head and then push through and see what interesting, slightly different, out of the ordinary, abstract, creative ideas come out of your head. It's a difficult challenge, but it's very interesting and it's worth just trying it and persevering and seeing how much you can push out of your brain to come up with an interesting story. So this is the final artwork. This is My Garden Sings for Me, and I hope you enjoyed this process and I hope you got a little bit out of my blethering. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I'll see you next time. Okay, tooroo.